Hello and welcome to Homescreen. I'm Lindsey, Product Director of 11FS Pulse. Homescreen is brought to you by 11FS Pulse, our collection of over 4,000 unique user journeys from banks and fintechs from all over the world. Head over to pulse.11fs.com to request a free demo to see how others are solving their UX challenges. In today's episode, we are joined by Martin Parzonka, Head of Product at PensionBee, and Matt Loft, VP of Design at PensionBee, to talk about how they're building and designing an easier way to keep track of your pensions. How are you both doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Doing well, caffeinated, ready to go.
Yeah, I see you guys are both in like a real office, which is quite a novelty these days still. Are you in the same office?
Yes, we are, yeah. We're in an office in Moorgate,
Very nice.
coming in around once a week at the moment. Yeah, it's quite nice to be here, to see a few faces. Still quite quiet on the ground.
Yeah, are the trains still quiet as well?
I'm cycling in, which is
very good.
so I avoid that whole problem.
Yeah, and I walk, so we're sort of lucky that way that we can avoid the trains anyway.
Yeah, it's so nice. Well, hopefully we'll all be getting back to normal in the next few weeks. At least we'll see how it goes.
For sure.
So I understand, Martin, that you were on the show a while ago. That was before my time at 11FS. But I was wondering if we could start off, if you want to recap for our viewers a bit about PensionBee and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So PensionBee is an online pension consolidation service. So we realized that people generally in the UK have about 11 different jobs throughout their career, and they end up having these disparate pension pots around the place and lose control of those pension pots and therefore unable to get on top of their retirement savings. So PensionBee exists to enable people to bring those pensions together into one simple online plan with one all-in fee that's very transparent, and allows customers then to use our planning tools to be able to foresee what they might need to plan for their retirement, what they might need to contribute to their pension, and how it's been tracking over time, and then how much they'll have in their pension pot when they do plan to retire.
That's amazing. I know that, at least speaking for myself, I have the remnants of all these pensions scattered around from the last however long, and sometimes you think to yourself, I really need to address this, but it's really tough. I'd like to maybe hear a little bit about what you or what PensionBee think about what's broken about traditional pensions, or what besides the obvious pain point of having those 11 or so bits and pieces left over in different pots. What else the average person will need in order to get on top of the problem?
Yeah, so I think, like we're saying, we're an online service, and I think a lot of the existing pension landscape relies on paperwork, right? And people get their annual statements from their pension supplier currently. Comes in an envelope, stack of 20 pages. Who's reading that, right? You're going to look at that and go, I'll deal with that one day. And that one day never comes, and people then keep getting detached from their retirement savings. And so that is something that is currently a problem within the pension space. And so we exist to simplify it, right? Get rid of the paperwork. It's all online. And not just that, I mentioned annual statements, and I mentioned it being a 20-page thing. We were a pioneer in the space of having a simpler annual statement, which is just 2 pages, PDF document accessible within the web application and also the mobile app. The customers can see exactly where they're at for the past year and what their retirement savings could look like. So we really look to make it a lot more accessible for people. Paperwork's one thing, it's also having real people to speak to. So we have at PensionBee, our customer service team are called beekeepers, and they're the account managers that look after you've got to be on brand, right?
No,
So
I love it.
they look after a customer's journey with us from opening an account, consolidating, contributing, right through to drawdown. And a customer can always call that same human and speak about their pension account with that person. So it's having a real sort of touch point to help people with this journey.
Yeah, definitely. One other question kind of about that journey. Do you find that your average customer, or maybe that's another question, is there an average customer? And do you find that there's a big knowledge gap as people become customers, and then as you go through the life cycle with them, and what do you do to address it?
Look, there is a knowledge gap, and that's something we do want to try and plug as well. So we have on our website a really extensive Pensions Explain Center, we call it, and all sorts of documentation is there for people to engage with and try and educate themselves on what it means to have a pension and how to engage with it. A typical customer, we try to serve everyone in the market that wants to have a pension, right? So from 18 years old right through to people in their 80s that want to, draw down from their pension. We want to be there for most people, for everyone to serve them and look after the retirement.
That's amazing. Matt, can I ask you a question? Just in terms of, I've seen the app and it's beautiful, and I love the branding with the hive and the bees and everything. Where did you find you needed to put the most focus in terms of the process and the design language of PensionBee?
Design language, I suppose, on the broadest level, the focus is on simplicity. Simplicity is one of our core values at PensionBee. Obviously, pensions can be a complicated, potentially scary area for people in their finances. So that filters through from our language right through our design on all levels, really. So from colour palettes, typography, just to the general minimalist kind of approach and the way we break down information through design. Very much just focusing on keeping things streamlined for customers so they don't have to be too preoccupied with anything that isn't their direct focus for the day.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, and it is true. Like, pensions are quite, I guess, complicated, or maybe they seem complicated to the average person in a way that can be kind of intimidating. So making up for it in the design makes a lot of sense. In terms of I'm just a bit curious, where you start with that journey, or was there a particular part, and maybe we'll see this when we look at the clips, but or there were particular pain points in that journey that you were setting out to solve at first?
I think the product has evolved quite substantially since we've first set it up, and we've learned a lot as we go. It's been very much customer sort of driven in that respect. People will clearly tell us if something is not working for them or is confusing, and we react to that. And we just sort of fold that learning back into the design process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I kind of have a follow-on question, which could be, I guess, answered by both of you. But in terms of going back to your sort of design language or your branding with, the beekeeper language and the hive and all that kind of stuff, did you find that the playful tone of voice, was that something that you road tested with users, or how did you arrive at that as the kind of way that you wanted to pitch the product?
Yeah, we didn't really, because it sort of instilled in the product from the early days when we didn't really have a lot of customers. But actually, we found quite early on that people just reacted to it really well. I think we would have been a bit more apprehensive if we were to approach this now with a serious customer base, because obviously we do have to tread a fine line between being seen as professional and experts in our field, but also this unique kind of personality that we have. I think it is, if you get the balance right, people really react well to it, and they feel like it's a breath of fresh air compared to the normal sort of pension company kind of talk and jargon you would expect. Yeah,
totally. It's like the fintech kind of tightrope where you need to be seen as a respectable and safe pair of hands, but also a refreshing change as well. Cool. I had just one more question again, which can kind of go to either of you. But in terms of the journey, in order not to, I guess, just pour all the information on people, duplicating that giant envelope you got once a year or whatever. How did you decide how much information to show to the customer at any one time?
It depends a lot on what that information is. If we're talking about a process where someone is interacting with the interface to a certain end, we're keen to keep that segmented as much as possible, so they're only really focusing on the task at hand at any given time. You'll see that in the user journey. The onboarding journey is broken down into simple questions, one question and a follow-up answer, and they step through it like you would a conversation. If we're talking more about parts of the product where you perhaps have to compare information, or it exists within context of a broader idea, then yes, we have to show a bit more information, because you don't want to have people having to flip between different areas of the products too often in order to understand or get clarity on the information they're trying to get.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
The other aspect of that, I think, to add is, I mentioned the Pension Explain Center earlier. You do have people that might be a little bit more sophisticated when it comes to financial services, and they can then go find that information. Like, we don't shove it in their face, but it's there if they need it, right? So it is sort of allowing people to find their path when it comes to interacting with financial services and pensions in general.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe just another thing kind of off the back of that, do you find that because you have such a diverse group of users, do you find that they're more interested in, I guess, self-education or finding that themselves, or do you find that you have some people who want to self-educate and some people who want help or to call or those sorts of things?
It's quite interesting at the moment that we're seeing, the expansion of the customer base is introducing some more sophistication, and the more you educate people in financial services, the more they want to learn, and the more they ask for. And so, of late, we're seeing customers wanting more data and insight about their investments, which is great. It's great that they're asking for that and they're engaged. And then it's like, well, then how do we serve those customers? So that's the challenge, right? You say diverse customer base. That is exactly what we need to sort of navigate. Is you want to keep it simple because the whole issue of it being complicated for most people, and that's why we exist. But then you've got these people that are getting more sophisticated and want a bit more than just the simple solution. And so where is that sweet spot? And maybe the answer is they're both a sweet spot, and we have to find a way to speak to both. And it's a good challenge to have. It's a great place to be in.
Yeah, fair enough. It's so true that once people start to learn, then they just want to know more.
Yeah.
And I think pensions are a particular corner of the financial services world where that's even more the case, I think, almost than anywhere else. Cool. So now should we take a look at your sign-up process?
These screens sort of introduce the customers to what's happening. So, it says right there, transfer and combine your pensions to one new online plan. And there's a visual element there of different suppliers in the market that we're combining pensions from. Contribute to pension with a few taps. So it's notifying to the customer that once they're in there, they will have the ability to add more money to their pension if they so choose. And then seeing the pension balance in one place, so that speaks to our retirement calculator in there and the tools to help them plan for a retirement. So we'll see this as we move on through the product, but there are some cool visual elements that allow customers to understand what's in their pension, what the composition is made up of. So that colourful donut chart we see there, we'll see a bit more detail around that, but it shows where the money's come from. And then there's a line chart in there that shows the growth of that pension pot over time. So the first few things that we ask for here, obviously their name. It's interesting here that we use the terminology legal first name, and the reason for that is people like we've got Matthew there as the example, but goes by Matt generally speaking. But when it comes to dealing with existing suppliers, we often need to use the exact name they have with them. Otherwise, there's obviously personal identification reasons for that that we need to get the detail from the existing pension supplier with or from. This cool design element, actually I'll throw it over to Matt here because this was his nice little thing he did here with the whole double check email address toggle.
Yeah, sure. So we on our web app had the usual double entry of your email address to avoid user error. People were signing up and then saying they can't log into their account, and the reason we were finding quite often is they'd actually entered their email address wrong, so we needed to validate that. Commonly you would do that by forcing them to enter it again. It annoys me, annoys everyone, I think. So this was me attempting to think my way out of that problem a little bit. And you also tend to see that people copy and paste that email address. So they copy and paste the mistake, which isn't helpful. So this was something we tried, I hadn't really seen it out in the wild anywhere. It's sort of something we invented and tested it, and actually worked really well. Just a simple toggle switch to sort of draw their eye back to that address and actually kind of trigger them to actually think about it and just double check it, and it's performed really well. It's easier for people, but we're not seeing anything like the level of incorrect addresses added, so it's a win for us. So here, yeah, we're just creating a password. That won't show up, I don't think, in the screen recording. But we'll get past it. You can show and hide it so you can see what you're entering. Through to Face ID or whatever biometrics you use on your device, and you create a PIN code as a backup. And then we ask some basic questions. So gender, it's something we have to ask because it's required for when we contact pension providers to transfer pensions. You can see there's a progress indicator here at the top as well to give you some sort of idea about how long this process is. Entering your date of birth, again, double check, ensure that that's right. Entering your phone number, fairly standard. And your address lookup. This is a standard element we have in a number of places across the website just to ensure that the address is correctly found. And success. So that's us through the first part of the onboarding journey. We've kind of split the journey into two. The first part is information that you really should just have already just to hand. Whereas the second part can be a little bit more complicated. So at this point we've paused and we've given some options. Do you need to learn more about the process that you're undertaking, or are you happy to get going now? So if we progress through the next step, we'll see what happens when we start to add pensions. So immediately we see here national insurance number, and that's not something you just know off the back of your head quite often. Some people do, of course, but that's why we've put it here, so you can actually come back into this journey and just start at this point whenever you've got this piece of information. Quite commonly, if you don't know this number, you tend to have to go and dig it out somewhere, and if you're doing that, you're probably in a place where you can also dig out your pension information. So it works quite well segmenting that content in that way. So here we are now adding pensions. So we're just lining up what it is we're going to need in order to do that. If you tap on a pension here, so now we ask you who the provider is. So you can select that from a drop-down list of all the various providers that there are. And we have an option there to say, are you currently paying into this pension? Do you know the policy number, which is an optional field? We'll come back to that later, but it's something that helps us speed up the process if we know that number. And then we see we've added a pension. We can edit or remove it. We can swipe across and add another pension. So selecting again, different provider. So we added the Prudential pensions transfer across, and we've noted here that it's being paid into. So it's an active pension that perhaps my employer is currently paying into. So we could add as many pensions as we need there, but if we're happy with that, we can skip to the next screen. And this is that we need your signature. So this is a signature we will need to request this information from your pension provider. Of course, we don't use any paper if possible. We don't want to send things in the post, so you can do it here digitally. Obviously, at this point, you would tilt your device so that you can sign your name, and with your finger you can just enter your signature So you can clear that and start again, or if you're happy, you can hit done, and there we go. And that's all we need. So here we return to the customer what it is they're about to transfer to us. So we can see the pensions they want to transfer are from Legal and General and Prudential. They just need to agree to the terms and conditions, and that's it. It's as simple as that.
Amazing, thank you. I wanted just to go back to the double check button on the email address and the password is the email address and the date of birth, because I think it's just amazing. And I know you said it's cut down drastically on people entering the wrong email address. Have you gotten any direct feedback about it, or have people reacted at all to seeing a different pattern there?
No.
Really?
They haven't. No, they haven't, which is great. They're just using it correctly. They seem to. I suppose you can deduce that they appreciate the simplicity of that, and are updating their password accordingly. We stopped monitoring it fairly quickly because it was just performing really well.
It's amazing. It's just that it's just a beautiful example of the right kind of friction that is just I think just so well done. I was also curious to know a little bit more about the sign-up journey and when the user starts adding their older pensions. Just as a random aside, like what happens if the user doesn't have their policy number? Because in the example it showed it, but if they're missing it, what happens then?
That's fine. So we let them through if they don't know the policy number, or they have to give us a provider name. And they go into a state which is pending transfers, where they can go in and add further information if they want to. Adding a policy number dramatically increases how quickly we can transfer that pension. In some cases, it means that we can do it automatically, and it's just an automated process. So we have some sort of UX kind of UI tricks in place to prompt people to add that information at a later date, because it's very much in their benefit if they want to transfer this pension quickly. But yeah, it's not a required field. We'll go and search anyway. It will just take a little bit longer.
Yeah, fair enough. And then I had just one more kind of comment / question, which is about the signature box, which is really nicely done, and it's just clear and easy to see in a way that those often aren't. We were wondering, were there many iterations of that before you landed on that way to handle signatures?
So we had on our web app, which we developed the journey first, we have a very similar thing. Obviously it's done with a mouse instead of your finger on a touchscreen device. I really thought we'd get a lot of feedback about that. I thought we'd have a lot of people struggling with it, and people would find it difficult. And there's a little bit of it, but really it's not substantial at all. Like, most people do a fantastic job and appreciate being able to do that, as opposed to the alternative, which is posting things and physically signing them and posting them back and all that palaver. So yeah, it's tested really well. People don't seem to struggle too badly with entering that. Yeah.
Nice. And I guess on the other side, have you encountered any issues in working with the different providers on accepting the signature box? Because I know that sometimes there are problems with some less digitized providers and accepting digital signatures.
Martin?
There have been challenges, yes. And sometimes we end up having to use actual paper with actual pen and have to send that to our customers, and we have to be very the communication has to be right. Like, you have to help them understand why we're now asking for that, even though we've portrayed ourselves as a digital first supplier, because we are. It's not us, it's the industry, right? Yeah. And you have to do it, unfortunately. Yeah. And so it does slow things down, and it's something we've been pushing for since we've existed, to enable faster transfers and make a digital landscape. It's 2021 now, right? Like, come on, why are we using paperwork still? But it is what it is.
Yeah, I know it's a bit of a leading question, because I think it's something that the whole industry is really struggling with, is getting the the stragglers over
Yeah,
over the line to let go of wet signatures.
that's it. And the more of us that like shake that tree, the more
Yes.
it'll fall down, right?
We'll get them there eventually.
Yeah.
Cool. Shall we look at the next journey now?
So this is really cool, right? Like, I think this is one of my favorite features within the product. It's enabling customers to see where they're getting to for retirement. So you can see this example, £308,000. And from here, the customer is able to go into the planner itself, which you can see on screen now. And it tells them what their projection is. And if they were to take £20,000 per year, how long it's going to last them. And this is really illuminating for people, right? Like it's getting them to conceptualize that this is a long-term thing and that the differences they make now, i.e. contributing now, actually impacts the future, right? It changes how much or how long it'll last. And that's amazing to see. You've got the plus minus toggles there to change the retirement age. And, retirement's an interesting word in itself. Like the concept of retirement means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It can mean just hard stop, go to the beach, and that's it, you're done. But for a lot of people, it's going to mean, reduce your working hours, 3 days a week perhaps. And those of us in this room, we probably won't be retiring at 65. It'll be later and later because lifespan is getting longer and longer. And you can see here we've actually pegged the burn down to age 100. And the reason for that is that people are living up to that. We linked to an article where people born, I think it is in post 2000, will be living to age 100. And so we would rather underestimate how much they're going to have to save rather than overestimate, right? So it's to show people that, I'm not hitting the target here. I might need to contribute some more. Now, we can't give them advice, of course, but it's there as a sort of guiding light to say, have you considered, right? Like, look at this chart. Are you really on track to your retirement goals? And it's a really, really powerful tool. So you can see the sliders down here. So you can change your retirement income. So, it defaults to 20,000, but it depends on what people want in retirement, right? For some people, it's going to mean just like I use the example of a beach, just sitting on a beach and watching the sunset, sunrise. For some people, it's going to mean, going out to dinner every night. Like it's not one size fits all. And so we allow customers to change that slider and say, this is what I think I'm going to need in retirement per year. And they can set it annually or monthly. And then there you go. You've got the personal monthly contribution and underneath that employee contributions. So customers can see the impact it's going to have on the chart, like you can see there. The chart shows itself moving closer and further away from that goal, depending on what the sliders indicate. The reason there's two different sliders there for personal and employer, personal contributions benefit from HMRC tax relief or tax top-up, where the amount you pay in, depending on your personal circumstances, you get some additional pension contribution from HMRC as an incentive for people to save toward their retirement. Because who knows what's going to happen in future, right? Like right now, the government is supporting people to an extent with the state pension, but is it going to want to keep supporting people forevermore? Questionable, right? So we want people, the government wants people to sort of look after themselves when it comes to the financial future. And so there's this incentive to save into a pension scheme. And it's a great incentive. It's for every £100 you put in, HMRC will put in another £25 on top, right? So it's like free money. Why wouldn't you do it? And so we really sort of highlight the impact that has within this planner here. So a couple of the sliders there, one of lump sum. So if people, want to plug in a windfall, obviously it's going to have a larger impact on the difference there. And then a couple of toggles down the bottom here, we can see the impact of taking 25% tax-free at 55, and that's the current age people can take money out of their pension. And again, like retirement being a sort of fuzzy concept, like that is the current age you can retire or take money from your pension, but it's not, may not mean retirement necessarily. And that's one of the benefits of a pension as well, is like you get the 25% tax-free, the rest of it gets taxed at whatever your taxable income rate is. And then full state pension. So we've got a toggle there for people that are eligible for the state pension. So it shows them that, how the chart changes based on that. But again, we default it to being off because we don't want to assume that it'll be there forever. So for a younger customer cohort, again, who knows, right? What the state pension will look like. So we don't want to just sort of oversell it and say, hey, you're going to have this, because I'm not sure it's guaranteed, right? So we don't want to really have it there as default switched on. It switches off as a default. And that kink in the chart there is just the indicator of if someone were to take that 25% tax-free at 55. So obviously there's a lump sum coming out of the pension. So that's going to have a marked impact on the chart there. So yeah, that's the planner.
I love how visual it is. It's really, really, really powerful when you see the sliders move and you can actually see the curve move immediately. It's yeah, like I think you said, obviously you're not giving advice per se, but the facts really speak for themselves when you see it like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, like just out of curiosity, and maybe this is either a Matt or a Martin question. Is like how did you land on this particular visualization?
So iteration, I think. So an early version, the first version of this tool was used a kind of speed dial UI sort of interface, which kind of gave you, it was very simple to use. It was more simplistic than the current one, and people did like the simplicity. You could very quickly see whether you were on target to reach your desired goal or not. But what it was missing was the concept of what that meant across time. So after a while, I redesigned it, taking on board customer feedback and some of the things we sort of learned along the way, particularly around the concept of time and what this means for you at different stages in your life, and if you move around where it is you want to retire and how much you want to retire on. Obviously, it's very important how long that money actually lasts you into your retirement, and what that sort of that burn down looks like. So this was the best way we could find to sort of really make that very visual and clear to people, so they can really see across the axis of time what this means for them at any given moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of like how it's landed with the customers, how has that landed, or I guess how did the transition go between the two models?
Yeah, the transition was really good actually. I think we struck the right chord in terms of not overloading it with everything we could have possibly put in there. So it's still a very usable, simple tool to give you a great indication of what you should be doing. And it has a great benefit of being actually part of a process, which is a contribution process. So you can take action from the tool to go through and actually action this thing you've modeled. We're still gathering requirements all the time. We're still constantly listening across all the different channels on people's thoughts on this. There are lots of thoughts on it. People really do like it. They contact us quite regularly saying this is a great tool. We do get specific requirements for it. Like some people want to use it as part of a broader tool to plan their finances. They want to be able to model what it would look like if they put in their ISA from Hargreaves Lansdown or whatever it is. So they want to use it as a sort of a way to see their full financial life in there, which is something that quite a few people ask for and something we're thinking about. But obviously that comes at the detriment of it being easy. So we're figuring out how best to do that. And I think it's the same for quite a lot of the product. Actually, we want to create something that grows with the customer as they become more financially literate. As they want more features, they can get access to those features, but we don't overload them at the start. So there's lots of improvements we can make, but it's in a good place currently. People find the benefits in it, and I think it helps them really understand what they should be contributing for their retirement.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not surprised that you say that people really love it, because it's awesome. And I love the idea too about the product almost like growing to help people bring that whole picture of their future together like that. So I guess kind of related to that, any thoughts or predictions on where you guys feel you might be taking the product in the future?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think, applying that same thinking to the entire product, really. So creating a product that grows with the customer. That it's really, we discovered more and more, it's not about their age, it's about their financial literacy and that and certain trigger points that perhaps happen to them across their life, getting a mortgage, having children or something. It really sort of switches them on to wanting more from the product. So it's finding ways to give them those things that they need at certain points, but not overloading them, keeping it a simple, clear product that separates us from, perhaps traditional providers. The other thing I think is clarity, just general clarity about what it is they're investing in. This is their money. People are very switched on these days as to what they feel they should and shouldn't invest in. That's very opaque in the pensions industry, and we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes at the moment to make that much more transparent, so people can really see where their money's going and how it's doing. Anything else you'd like to mention, Martin?
No, I think that what you're just saying there about the investment clarity, like, yeah, we were saying earlier about people getting more sophisticated, and so they're demanding more insight, and so it's finding that sweet spot of what we provide them, as well as keeping it simple for everyone else. And things like we mentioned the content earlier as well. How do we serve that to people? How do we contextualize it based on their particular demographic? Because people need different guidance based on where they're at with the situation, right? So us in our 30s and 40s that are in an accumulation phase, like adding money to our pension, saving for retirement, is a very different prospect to someone that's ready to take money out of their pension and have different needs and circumstances. And it's being able to serve up content and ideas and modeling tools that serve both those markets, and allowing people to really engage with it on an ongoing basis. Like, we want to be there for the entire life cycle of that journey. And so that's, again, like, it's a really interesting challenge, and that's where we're evolving, is to be able to serve those customer segments.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's amazing to see that vision for the future, because I guess historically there's a kind of idea that like pensions are almost like in a category of their own when it comes to financial planning, and it would be amazing to see it kind of all brought into the same place where you can.
Exactly, and there shouldn't be, like, pensions need not be complicated, right? It's just another financial product. It's just another saving vehicle. It has different behaviors slightly, and it's got different tax treatment. But so what, right? It's still your money that you're saving to do something with, right? So it's not too dissimilar to an ISA, or even too dissimilar to a bank account, really. Again, like, I'm oversimplifying maybe to an extent, but it should be part of a bigger picture, and it shouldn't be just something you throw into the cupboard and go, I'll deal with that one day. Like, deal with it now and start thinking about it now and saving for it now, because it makes a hell of a lot of difference.
Amazing. And then lastly, if our viewers want to find out more about you or PensionBee, where can they go?
Well, for PensionBee, they can go to pensionbee.com. There's a huge amount of information on there. Personally, I can be found on LinkedIn. I don't know how. On Twitter, I'm Matt J Loft, so that's easy. I'm sure if you search PensionBee, you'll on LinkedIn, you'll find all of us on there.
Yeah, same. LinkedIn, simplest way to go. I don't really use Twitter that much. I'm on there, but yeah, you're better off going to LinkedIn.
Fair enough. And then the short version is just download the app, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Cool. So just before we wrap up, we're just going to quickly take a look at Pulse's Pick of the Week.
Our Pulse Pick of the Week goes to UK InsurTech Cuvva and their quote selecting journey. All the user has to do is enter their vehicle registration, and Cuvva automatically identifies the vehicle and surfaces some motor insurance quotes. Whether you're borrowing a car for an hour or an entire month, it's exceptionally quick and easy to get covered. Pulse is our collection of over 4,000 user journeys from banks and fintechs from all over the world. So head over to pulse.11fs.com to request a free demo to see how others are solving their UX challenges.
So thanks for watching today's show. If you want to see more journeys like PensionBee, head over to pulse.11fs.com to find out more and catch up on other home screen episodes.